This conference will now be recorded.
Like to begin, Frank?
Yeah, I'd say go ahead. They're starting to come in, and we'll have the recording posted on the website afterwards. So.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar, which focuses on employment issues in the construction industry as a result of COVID-19. Thank you all for taking time to join us in what should be a very informative session. As a quick reminder, please remember to mute your microphones during this presentation. It's my privilege to remember to introduce our presenter today. Commissioner Mark Butler took office as Georgia's Labor Commissioner in January of 2011. During this time in office, he has focused on his continuing goal of creating valuable workforce solutions through strategic alliances and community relationships. Commissioner Butler has developed several new programs that have strengthened the Labor Department's relationships between employers, job seekers, and Georgia's future workforce. Today, the Commissioner will address a number of issues, including advice for small business owners who have never utilized the Department of Labor, how members best engage with the department to the benefit of their business and employees, and the outlet for home construction in the state. We are very fortunate to have him conducting this session for us today. Thank you, Commissioner Butler, for taking your time to join us, and I now would like to turn it over to you.
Okay, well, right now it looks like you may be hearing me and not seeing me, but unless we can wait interview, hold on. Well, I'm not, well, I guess you guys are just gonna have to listen to me, and I can't see you and you can't see me. The video portion of this doesn't seem to want to work for me. Let's just kind of give a rundown what's been going on. Oh, wait a minute, now we can. Whoops. Well, then you took it away. Do whatever you did again just then. You gave me about 2 seconds to start my video, and then you took it away.
Well, that turns on everybody's camera, so.
All right. Now, how about that?
There we go.
Okay. All right. Not that I don't really think that improved anybody's screen at all, but so kind of you run down what we've been dealing with at Department of Labor and kind of break down some numbers and kind of explain some of the difficulties that have been created. First of all, we've seen a record number of claims that were filed, somewhere approaching 1.7, 1.8 billion claims filed. However, of those claims that have been filed, we've only been able to verify just under about 800,000 of those claims. And what I mean by verify, that means that is somebody that had income that was tied to an employer, a W-2 employer, which is normally the only individuals that can get unemployment. The reason why that is because those are the only employers that typically report people's wages to the Department of Labor and also pay taxes to the Department of Labor, which is what funds the unemployment system. And so out of those right now, we're at about 85% paying out on those verifiable claims, which, by the way, is one of the highest numbers in the nation right now. And a lot of the claims that we have been able to pay out, some of those are going to be some troubled claims, the claims with issues that have to be rectified, and some of those are going to be new claims that haven't got to the point where they actually can be paid out. The longest ones, or the ones that take the longest, are going to be individual claims. But to give you an idea of what that all means to Department of Labor, the month before all this happened, we were averaging about 20,000 claims filed a month, and we were slightly understaffed for that type of traffic. So you went from 20,000 claims a month to basically 1 million. And so it has been extremely overwhelming. However, we have not had some of the problems other states have had. We've actually been able to process claims much faster. I think even CNN had a story the other day where they talked about the top 3 states for the most claims for unemployment, and Georgia was in the top. I think we were number 3 actually. But they said that they believe that the reason why Georgia was showing as number 3 is because we were actually processing claims faster than other states. And I'm not going to sit here and say that we've got some kind of magic sauce that other states don't have, except for the fact that we actually, have over the last several years have streamlined some of the process, and we have a very good team, and so that may be part of it. And also, even though we don't have the newest computer system, we also don't have the oldest either. So we're kind of in between on that. But our system is also a lot more flexible than other states. Other states have to hire or bring in a contractor to make fixes to theirs because they don't have the personnel on board to do it when it comes to making changes. Whereas here in Georgia, we actually do all that in-house. All of our developers work for us or are directly contracted to us full-time from a vendor. And so we've been able to be a little bit better at going after those. Another thing that has really caused some issues, and this is going to be part of those numbers that weren't verified in the CARES Act. When it was passed by Congress, they threw everybody a little bit of a curveball. And I understand why they did it. However, I disagree about the delivery method in which they want to provide this help. In the past, or normally, somebody that was self-employed, 1099 worker, however you want to term it, gig workers, what is another term out there, somebody who had not been paying into the system, not paying unemployment taxes. I mean, I know people say, well, I pay taxes. Well, if you don't pay unemployment taxes, you're not in our system. They had in the past had never been able to get unemployment before, but in the CARES Act, they decided to come up with saying, you may have heard this term PUA, Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. It was one of several things that were passed in that package. And this particular part of the act actually gave unemployment benefits to those that have never paid into the system, your self-employed workers. Now, I understand why they did it. They did it because if the government's going to shut you down, then and force you not to be able to give income, there needs to be some type of compensation. So on that part, I agree on. But however, asking us to do this in this manner was probably not the best way to go about it. Of course, they didn't call and ask any of the states about how this works. And we know, well, trust me, if you don't know, Congress is not the most informed bunch on the planet when it comes to how things work on the state level. And, they think this is something very simple. But to be able to provide unemployment benefits based on the rules that were given to us by the federal government has been a tremendous lift because we were not set up for that. Matter of fact, I was on the phone with my counterpart in New York, and New York is way behind us in doing this. I mean, they're griping, everybody's griping about this because nobody was set up to be able to provide unemployment benefits to somebody who's never paid into the system. And so we've actually had to create an application. When I say application, I'm talking about a computer application to be able to allow people to apply for this benefit, to be able to fill out why they should get the benefit, also to upload all their financial information, which we do not have because they are self-employed and they've never reported to us, and also take that information and come up with an unemployment amount like we would for somebody normally, based upon what they are self-reporting as their income, then be able to provide that amount to them as a weekly benefit. That is no small task. When you talk about doing that from scratch, we were able to do it basically after we were given the rules and regulations from the Department of Labor. We were actually able to do that in about 2 weeks, which is phenomenal. If anybody knows anything about computer applications or creating them, something that's that complicated, that was a tremendous amount of work that was done by the IT staff at the Department of Labor. Now, was it a finished product? No. We're constantly having to go in there, make changes to it, make enhancements to it. We also have to add parts to it, like the part where the staff can take a look at people's claims to see if there's some kind of issue, if it's getting held up, why is it being held up, what needs to be looked at closer, and also the part of the application that allows the person who's applied to take a look at additional information and go look at screens about where they are, that kind of stuff. So all that had to be built also later on, but it's out there. We've been paying those claims. for several weeks now. But not only that, but we had to do some additional programming because this is the one thing everybody hears a lot about. Is also in that same CARES Act, they decided to add in an additional enhancement to state benefits. Here in Georgia, the maximum you can get on a weekly basis for unemployment benefits is $365 a week. The federal government decided, or Congress did, in the CARES Act, to add an additional $600 on top of that every single week, which here in Georgia puts you just under $1,000 a week in unemployment benefits. That $600 can also be paid out to those applying to PUA, which is the self-employed benefits also. So all that had to be programmed, set up to recognize when people are getting payments, and all that's been done. And we've been paying those payments out. And speaking of payments, if you want to have an idea of how much money has been flowing out for unemployment, we consider March 16th kind of the red letter day. That's when we just started seeing the very first signs of an increase in claims. From that date until today, we have paid out $2.8 billion in state and federal unemployment benefits. That's billion with a B. Just in state benefits alone, we've paid out over $900 million. And our current trust fund balance for state benefits, that's the one that people pay taxes into, the unemployment taxes into. Our trust fund right now currently stands at $1.9 billion, which sounds like a lot of money. But when you consider the fact in just a couple of months we've burned through $900 million, you can kind of do the quick math on that. That $2 billion may not last very long if we keep burning it at the same rate we're burning it right now. But if we do get to the point to where we keep having to send out that kind of money on a monthly basis or weekly basis, there are mechanisms where we can borrow money directly from the federal treasury. It's a fairly easy process. Before I became labor commissioner, you go back to the recession, they had to borrow money several times because the trust fund had run dry. And when I became labor commissioner, we actually owed almost $1 billion to the federal government for trust fund borrowing. So we're not going to run out of money, so to say, when it comes to paying unemployment benefits. I would rather us not have to borrow money, but the reality is if we keep burning it at the rate we're doing it, that's where we're going to be. So that's kind of a snapshot of what we've been dealing with, the tremendous amount of work. By the way, we've been open 7 days a week since this started. A lot of overtime being paid out, and we have been enhancing our employees' pay during this time to help, to enhance, obviously their livelihood, but also to make sure that we keep as many people online as we possibly can, because just like private sector workers, a lot of those could have taken leave based on some of the other things that were passed by Congress. And so trying to make sure that we kept at least 85 to 90% of our workforce, that was part of the equation. Now, as we're starting to see Georgia open back up and put people back to work, there's going to be a lot of challenges. First of all, obviously, there's going to be some trepidation on different people's parts. I can already see that the questions that I'm getting from claimants are already changing to help me get my unemployment benefits, to help me keep my unemployment benefits. And the reason why is when you talk about the rich amount of benefits that was passed by Congress, you're going to have a lot of people out there that are actually going to be making more on unemployment than they were at their previous job. And you're going to see a lot of that. And so some of the things that we did here in Georgia that are going to be unique to Georgia, we're trying to find a way to kind of fight off some of that kind of behavior. And one of the things that we did in the very beginning was that we actually did two things. We required businesses to file on behalf of their employees, which a lot of businesses grumble, but I'm going to explain to you again why we did this and why it was very necessary and how it's going to be very helpful in the end. But we required them to apply for benefits and claim the weekly benefits for their employees, because at first it looked like this was going to be temporary, just a few weeks. Obviously, it stretched out longer than that. But it also puts employers in charge of the benefits to a certain extent. Now, that does not keep an individual from going out and filing on their own if an employer decides to stop. But the reason why we did this is because, as we start to open back up and you get ready to recall your employees, several things are going to happen. First of all, we're still encouraging employers to keep filing the partials, at least until you start bringing people back. because we're about to roll out some new features here in about a week or a week and a half, stuff that we've been creating behind the scenes to give us some new tricks. And for those that are filing on behalf of their employees, you're going to get a notification from us. And what will happen is when you start to pull people back, you have several options. First of all, if you're bringing people back and their income is going to be a lot less than it used to be, to the point to where they can actually still get some unemployment benefits if they're not making, basically, I'll go over that real quick, how that can happen. One of the changes we put in there, you can actually we're actually excusing a higher amount of money from your income and still collect unemployment benefits. It used to be that you could excuse the first $50 of wages per week, and then every dollar above $50 subtract a dollar for dollar from your unemployment benefits. We increased that number to 300. And so basically, with all these different programs that are sitting out there, if you have somebody that's coming back to work for you, and let's say they were getting the maximum amount, $365 a week from state benefits, if they come back to work and they're not making as much as they used to, we excuse the first $300 of their weekly salary. So say if they were making $450, we would excuse the first 300 of that, and so that leaves you $150. That $150 you went over would subtract from their weekly benefit, right? So they would get that much less from the state. And a really simple formula how to deal with it is if they're going to get any state unemployment at all, you would basically take $300 plus whatever the weekly benefit amount is, add those two together and subtract at least $1 from that amount. As long as their weekly pay doesn't exceed that, they'll get at least $1 from us. Now, why it's important that they get $1 from us is until the end of July, they will, if they get at least $1 of unemployment from us, they'll be able to collect the 600 from the Fed. So we've encouraged a lot of employers who are bringing people back at lesser wages or fewer hours, take a look at this and do it that way. So you can keep doing partials for those individuals. Now, then you're gonna have people say, well, what about the folks we're not bringing back because we're not gonna need them anymore because we don't have the capacity? On those individuals, on the partial claim system where you've been uploading everybody's information, you'll actually be able to go in there, mark those individuals that are going to be permanently laid off, and then it will go to another screen and it'll give those names of those people again and say, are you sure you want to take these people off your partial upload permanently? And at that point, if you say yes, then we will switch them over to an individual claim and they can have no stop in their unemployment and they can basically just go right into an individual claim and keep on going. And the reason why that's important is in the old way of doing things, what would happen is you would just stop filing for them and then they'd have to start a claim all the way from scratch, which could cause them to lose maybe 3 or 4 weeks, especially right now with the volume we have of unemployment benefits. And so please use that system and wait for it to come live. You'll be getting some notifications on it. We're also going to be offering some online tutorials about how to use it. And it's a good way to be very good to those individuals that are having to lay off that won't have a job. Now, then people go, well, what about the people I'm trying to call back that won't come back to work because they're saying, well, I can make just almost as much money being unemployed? On those, you know, obviously you need to try your best to try to bring them back, find out why they're not coming back. But if they just refuse to come back, then you would just drop them from your partial claim. You would not claim them anymore. And then they would have to go out and attempt to file an unemployment claim on their own, which we cannot stop them from doing that. They can legally go out there and do that. But at that point, then it goes through the regular process. And then you can appeal whatever they say. Like if they said, you know, well, I'm not coming back because I have a compromised immune system and I'm allowed to do this, et cetera, et cetera. You know, you can fight that by saying, well, no, they told me something different. They told me they just want to stay at home or whatever. But that individual will actually have to show proof that they do have a type of medical condition. It won't be on you, it'll be on that person, because obviously you won't know or have access to their medical files and things like that, but they'd have to show some type of documentation. But now keep in mind, you do have some other reasons why somebody can still collect unemployment legally. Besides the normal reasons, as long as we're under this state of emergency or health state of emergency, you know, like I just said, one of them could be a pre-existing health condition where they have a compromised immune system, and there's all kinds of things that fall into that. Or it can be somebody who's over the age of 60, that's allowed. A third reason is going to be somebody who lives with somebody under the first two categories, which is compromised immune system or over the age of 60. And also the one that we're hearing a lot of people use is have school-aged children and they have no access to childcare because childcare facilities have not opened back up, and so they have nobody to keep their kids. That's also allowable. Now, I will tell you this, that we have seen some people try that when it was a two-person household, and both of them claim that, which that's not allowed. I mean, one of them can do that, but not both. That's kind of in a nutshell where things are kind of going. I did remember some of the questions you guys put out there. One of them is, what do we do if we start looking for individuals, and how do we work with the Department of Labor? Well, depending on where you're located around the state, we do have regional coordinators, and you can find those individuals online through our employer section on our website. You can reach out to that regional coordinator that can help you with hiring, and that's going to be your best avenue to do that right now. Our career centers right now are having to focus mainly on unemployment claims because considering the fact that when this hit, we were at the lowest amount of staffing that we've had historically, and people say, well, why were you at this low amount of staffing? How come you weren't better prepared? Well, our funding, for the most part, is actually based upon the number of claims that we were processing. And right before this hit, literally a few days before this hit, we were at the lowest amount of claims historically that we'd seen since the 1970s. So our money was at a historical low, and so we didn't have the money to have extra people. And not only that, but also we had not been allowed access to some funding that we've had over the years with the state that normally used to come back to us that was generated by us, and that money has been diverted to other causes. And so basically, we were kind of a victim of circumstances when it comes to staffing, and you really can't staff up quick enough to handle a situation like this due to the fact that to handle a lot of the things that we're having the most trouble with right now, it takes a fair amount of training, and it's not something you can train somebody in a few days. Usually it takes weeks and weeks and weeks to get somebody that, competent to get in there. And plus, you're talking about when you go to hiring somebody right now, it's still a little bit of a drawn out process because we're required to only hire individuals who can pass an FBI background check because of all the important information that we have in Department of Labor. But anyway, with all that being said, we're still handling the situation, I think, fairly well. There's still going to be some bumps and bruises here and there. We, put out the fires as they present themselves. But overall, you can be proud that the state of Georgia has handled their situation a lot better than a lot of other states. I've had several people that work with companies that are in several states, and they have all come back to me complimenting Georgia and what we've been able to do here. One of them was a restaurant chain that's in 26 states, and they told me that in all the states they're having to deal with, that Georgia has been the best. And so that's a good compliment to the men and women in the Department of Labor and the job that we're doing. And that being said, I'm not saying we're perfect, because we're not, because this is a difficult situation. And you're talking about a lot of claims that are sitting out there. And a lot of claims we're dealing with right now are troubled claims that actually require an individual to look at that individual claim. And that takes a while. When in normal times, you may have 1,000 sitting around that need to be looked at, and you can get to those. But when that number becomes, 70,000, that's not something you can do in a few days. And that's kind of, I think you had some questions if you want me to take a few.
Thank you, Commissioner. We really appreciate you taking the time, and we certainly appreciate everything your staff has been going through. So can't have been easy for any of them through all this. If anybody has any questions, they can type them into the chat window there. The Commissioner will get to them. Otherwise, we'll just assume that he has so thoroughly explained this topic that nobody has any questions to ask. All right, I don't see anybody entering in. Oh, here comes one. Oh, that was just somebody saying that was awesome. So there you go. We'll take
well,
that.
there's a lot to cover. I mean, this has been I hate using the same term, unprecedented, but I had a reporter ask me a few weeks ago, he was interviewing me, and he says, well, can you give me something, what do you compare this to? What do you compare what you guys are going through right now at the Department of Labor? And I said, you need to understand, this is not something that you can compare to anything. this is the thing that everything else going forward will be compared to. This will be that one once in a lifetime event, we hope, once in a lifetime event that we'll talk about, for generations. There'll be, I mean, after I'm long gone from the Department of Labor, there'll be some people that, are been there for the next 20 years, and they'll say, well, you remember back in, when the COVID-19 virus and all that, and there'll be nothing that compares to this right here. So, but I can tell you this, we're writing down everything that we do right and everything that we do wrong. And I can tell you one thing, if it ever happens again, knock on wood, let's pray to dear God that it doesn't. We're going to have some even better tricks on the next go around. So, but it's one of those kind of things nobody imagined happening in the way that it did. We were actually getting geared up for a possible, mini recession, because you keep hearing that's going to happen any day now. And so we had actually started working on some new tricks, and thank goodness we have, because a lot of those have come in handy about being able to process claims at a lot faster rate.
Yeah, it's, I can't imagine what anybody would think you would compare this to. But one question that's come up here is somebody's asked if you've got any thoughts on the home building industry and what we might have to look to and what to expect here in the coming 6 to 8 months to a year or so.
Well, if I had to look in a crystal ball and predict, I would say that, your really skilled laborers, you would think would come back fairly easy, but I know for a fact that I think, the ones, especially the ones that have individual claims, I think that some of those are going to ride this thing out and try to figure out a way to get that 365 and the $600 a week until it runs out in July. And I think it's going to be really tough sledding for most of Georgia. I think people are worried about it not having enough jobs when all this comes out. I have a funny feeling, and I'm going to go ahead and just put this out there. I'm going to predict that jobs are not going to be a problem coming out of this. It's going to be workers, at least until the end of July. When the $600 goes away, then all of a sudden you're going to see a whole bunch of people jumping back into the workforce, start looking for work, and wanting to go to work when that extra $600 goes away. But I've talked to some contractors already. One that's in Southwest Georgia just here recently, and she was hopping mad because, and I got to call a concrete person later today about this same subject. She has a young man in his early 20s, is an electrician, which pays pretty well. They just do commercial work, and he decided that he said he was too scared to come back to work because he's afraid he'd get the virus. This is not a gentleman that has any type of health issue. He's perfectly healthy, perfectly fine. And he's out there trying to claim unemployment benefits, even though they've been trying to get him to come back. And they had a couple others that did that too. And I think that's one of those things we're going to struggle with. And I've been cautioning individuals, y'all need to be very careful about trying to ride this thing out, because a lot of people have not learned their lesson. If you go back to the recession, and when we were coming out of the recession, a lot of people, some people that, were on unemployment for a very, very long time, it was for a particular reason. But some of those that went ahead and exhausted the 99 weeks, if y'all can remember that one, had 99 weeks of unemployment. A lot of those individuals, when they did start looking for work, had a much harder time finding a job because they had this big hole or this gap in their work history. And so a lot of people said, well, I don't know if I want to hire that person because it looks like they were just trying to get unemployment, and this person over here, they didn't have that kind of gap, and it's like they're a little bit harder worker. And so, they didn't actually come out and say that, but that's what the thinking was. But if you have a lot of people that show they didn't work from March to the end of July, that's what's going to be on a lot of employers' minds, going, I know exactly what that person did. And I think it's going to end up hurting some of these individuals when they try to come back into the workforce.
That's actually a common problem. Up in the Northeast, they're having a really bad problem with that. Unions have actually been telling their laborers to just stay home in a couple of states. So,
well, yeah, I can see why. I mean, think about it. I mean, a lot of these individuals, because especially in your skilled areas, I mean, they're making pretty good money, so they're going to easily qualify for the top amount. And if you're talking, $965 a week, I mean, that's not nothing to sneeze at, and let's say
That's
you
great.
start doing you start doing some odd jobs on the side to enhance that, and, you can do pretty well. So I think what you're going to see is this is going to be a bad experiment, and Congress, to me, went the wrong route on this. I know it was a part of the negotiating for some other things and whatnot, and a lot of this stuff generated out of the House. But in the end, it's going to hurt us economically speaking, because your workforce, there's a lot of companies that are going to struggle to fill jobs coming out of this, and it's going to stay that way until after that $600 dissipates. And so this summer is going to be tough. Can you imagine if you're in another field? In summer's like, I know it's going to be really tough on builders, because this is the wide open season right now. My grandfather was a builder, and this is when they were doing most of their work during spring, summer, early fall. This is when you got to really get out there and hum it before the weather starts changing. And it's going to be tough on them. But also take a look at people that are in tourism. A lot of those people went out and did individual filings, and they're going to sit it out the entire summer season just about. And so what I would tell right now, some of these young people that couldn't get unemployment because they didn't have a job, maybe they were coming out of high school, this is their opportunity to shine right now. And I would tell them to get out there and grab some of these jobs that some of these adults are not going to take.
Yeah, I think we've thoroughly scared a few people. Somebody's just asked if you think there's any chance that they're going to extend the $600 a week benefit. And I know the House is going to be releasing their package today. Have you heard any rumors on that?
The good news is at least right now you have a split House and Senate party wise. I'm not hearing anybody on the Senate side being too open to that idea. And, I hope they don't really right at this point, because they don't have enough data to make that decision at this point, because we haven't put people back to work. We don't have a clearer picture of what's going on. They can wait, and they can do that sometime in July if it's necessary, but I just don't think it is. And actually, we try to insert ourselves in that legislation at the 9th hour, because they didn't tell anybody what was going on until about 72 hours before it passed about what they were thinking about doing. And we tried to discourage them from doing the $600. Our suggestion from a program and from a practical sense, I'm like, if you want to enhance states' unemployment benefits, instead of just throwing out a blanket number out there and make a one size fits all, why don't you just say, okay, 50 states, whatever a person gets in unemployment, we're going to allow you to double it, and we will take care of the doubled portion of it. We'll reimburse you for it, which that actually fits each individual state's economy better, and it's not quite as rich of a benefit, but it still helps somebody out a whole lot. But that suggestion kind of fell on deaf ears pretty quick.
Yeah, the rumors about the $2,000 per family that the House is floating around right now doesn't seem like it's going to do much good for this to pile on top of the $600 a month. But
well, you go to some countries that have extremely rich unemployment benefits, like some of the Scandinavian countries. I'm trying to remember which one we had. We had the labor committee from their parliament was visiting with us several years ago, and they were asking about unemployment in Georgia. And and when we got finished talking about ours, I asked them about their system. I said, well, how much do you guys pay out? And so one of them got their calculator and tried to figure out what it would be in US dollars. And they said it was the equivalent of $25,000 a year is what their unemployment is. And I said, well, how long does that last? I go, it's kind of open-ended. And I'm like, oh my gosh, are you serious? It's just open-ended. It just goes on forever. And they said, well, yeah. And I said, well, gosh, I guess two people, if they want to, they could go in together, get about $50,000 a year, and they could probably afford a pretty decent place. And one of the ladies just started waving her hand at me and said, no, that doesn't include their housing allowance. I said, so wait a minute. I said, so they get a housing allowance, and you could have two people both getting $25,000 a year for unemployment. And I'm assuming there's other medical things. And they go, yeah. And I'm like, I said, so how hard is it for your businesses to find workers? And they were like, very hard. And I'm like, wow. I mean, if you incentivize people not to work by making these types of benefits too rich, I mean, you're hurting everything. You're hurting the economy. You're hurting your businesses. You're actually hurting those individuals too, because once you start getting into a habit, and right now there's a lot of habits that have been formed over 2 months, and so this is going to be there's going to be a lot of papers and a lot of doctoral students in economics have got a lot to write about for the next several years.
Well, hopefully it doesn't go as bad as some of us fear that it might. I think we've pretty much covered anything unless you want to throw out a comment on the PPP program, but I don't know if that's in your wheelhouse there at all. So
that is so far out of my wheelhouse. I mean, my brain is so full right now of the stuff that I have to know that when we start about things that other agencies do besides mine, I can't add any more to it right now.
Well, Commissioner Butler, we certainly appreciate your time very much. This has been a really informative and helpful, and we just can't tell you how much we appreciate your time taking out to talk to us today. Good luck going forward. If there's anything we can do for you, please let us know. And we'll be posting this on our website as the recording if anybody wants to see it down the road. So, Cindy will be in touch with you guys, let you know where that is. And thank you very much. We appreciate you. Good luck.
Thanks.
All right, everybody, we appreciate you being here today. The recording will be posted up on the website later on today. And if you have any follow-up questions that you want to get to us, just let us know and we'll try to forward that over to the commissioner's staff and try to get those answered to you for you. So thank you all very much. And
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you.